We thought it would actually be pretty good against control decks, so we'll see if that actually happens here.
Yeah, a lot of ways to find extra cards, and Farika is another new addition. Adam has a copy of that in his main deck, one in the sideboard. Could potentially help out in the grind of your game. Not really that hard for this deck to also turn on the devotion requirement, so some new tools here in the new set.
Bowman on 6 cards here, as you do see Rill number 6 on our Season 2 leaderboard. Just with a couple copies of Temple of Enlightenment to get things started, Bowman is quite clearly missing something. It is green mana as Rill plays a 3rd Temple. It looks like he's going to leave that card on top before passing the turn back. And Bowman going to play a Temple of Malady. Going to take a look at his hand here before he decides what he wants to do with that. But he has found green mana now.
And it may already be too late, unfortunately, for him. Eric with a lot of powerful tools in his hand and Sphinx's Revelation, so might be able to take this game pretty easily.
Azorius Guildgate going to pass the turn back over to Bowman. Let's see what his first play is going to be. It looks like it's going to be a Sylvan Caryatid. A little bit more mana here will certainly be useful. Passes it back over to Rill, who does have an island in his hand, so he does have a land to play. Has an Azorius Charm as well. He also has Celestial Flare in his deck. Card is very popular this weekend.
We've seen a lot of it, that's for sure. At least, I believe this is at least the 3rd time we've seen it in someone's main deck.
See an Elvish Mystic. Gonna follow that up with a Lotleth Troll. Rill gonna cast a Revelation for 2 here on the end of Bowman's turn. So 2 cards coming along with 2 life for the blue-white control player. He'll untap. He will take a draw here. Looks like he's found at least 1 land. Looks like a couple, actually. So land drops are not going to be a problem for Eric moving forward. Big question is, what does he want to do this turn? Maybe deploy an Elspeth, maybe leave his shields up. We'll see.
You could also Supreme Verdict this turn and just get rid of some of Adam's mana. He has been missing land drops, so a lot of attractive options this turn.
Again, when we think of Rill, we think of his Legacy play. Has won multiple opens in Legacy with Delver strategies, as here is a Supreme Verdict. He's going to regenerate the Lotleth Troll right now. As you did mention, clean up some of that mana of Bowman's. Bowman draws a copy of Nighthowler for the turn.
And this gets the game into a spot where Eric can just use an Azorius Charm to fend off this Lotleth Troll or use Celestial Flare.
And Azorius Charm will work for right now. Looks like he's more concerned about denying a draw step here, as there's a backup Lotleth Troll.
I don't blame him either. You know, just keep Adam off of his mana here. Seems like a good formula.
Rill gonna tap 4 mana. This is a Jace. It's gonna go on down. There's a Detention Sphere. This is a Detention Sphere, and that is a Temple of Deceit.
And these are the ideal Jaces where there's 3 relevant cards and you're happy to take any 2-card pile.
Rill still hasn't played a land yet this turn. We know he does have at least 1, and there is the one we know about. There's a Temple. Take it to the top. Gonna place it to the bottom. And just pass the turn back with the Flare at the ready. Lotleth Troll the draw here for Bowman. There is your Celestial Flare. Says, I don't think so.
Rough times here for Adam.
Yeah, just really didn't get out of the gate very well. Gonna play that replacement Lotleth Troll yet again before passing the turn back over to Rill, who will draw a card.
He somehow has missed land drops and almost run out of resources because he's gotten 2 for 1 and slowed down so many times thus far.
Rill gonna take up his Jace, gonna play Temple of Enlightenment, gonna leave that card on top of his deck. Now he's gonna drop down the old Elspeth. New format, still just as good. 3 soldiers gonna come in. Pass the turn over to Bowman, will Rill. Bowman will untap those 3 lands, gonna play a forest. Finally got to see a new card. Seems like forever.
Fun. I got a draw step.
4 mana here. This might be a Nighthowler. Gonna get bestowed potentially. Well, that's what that's gonna be. So now it's time to go attacking. The question is, where are we gonna go?
I have to assume it's Elspeth. Adam needs to get that off the table before he can start really making any real inroads here.
The combination of Nighthowler and Lotleth Troll is very, very good.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
3 tokens going to go in front here. You take a look at the creatures in the graveyard. There are 4 down there right now. So Nighthowler providing +4/+4. Lotleth Troll going to make it a 6-power creature. 6 minus 3 is 3. And of course with Jace, that's actually making a 2-power attacker. So the question now for Bowman is, how much do I dump into this Lotleth Troll because my regeneration shield is down?
I don't need, I mean, Adam can't really afford to play around anything here.
Just has to make his move.
I think so.
Well, it looks like he is making his move. Discard 2 Nemesis Immortals. And there goes Elspeth too, so got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, once he starts pumping, he has to finish the job because otherwise Elspeth's minus just takes care of it.
Yep.
So doesn't really have too much of a choice.
Azorius Charm is a disgustingly good draw.
I think Eric was about to detention sphere that Lotla Troll now. He doesn't even bother doing that.
Boy. Okay.
Well, I can beat none of those 3 cards. So
a Jason, Azorius Charm, and an Elspeth are the options for Rill. Looks like he's going to take the Planeswalkers to the grip. This will go to the bottom. Yikes. Rill going to play his land. This is Azorius Guildgate. Is he going to be able to? Yeah, he's going to be able to play Elspeth and leave Azorius Charm up. Oh, not a bad turn. Not a bad turn. Pass the turn back over to Bowman. Will Rill. Adam will draw his card for the turn. He doesn't know it, but things are about to get really bad for him.
I think he knows it.
Oh, there's an Azorius Charm. That goes on top. Nighthowler's going to get to come into play. It'll be pretty big. Now here's a Seder Wayfinder. So that's actually going to go by the Lotless Troll. 3, 4. Force will go to the grip. Farika's going to go to the bin. Going to play the Force for the turn. And Nighthowler's really big, but Nighthowler doesn't trample.
Yep.
And so Elspeth just doesn't care. Dissolve the draw here for Rill.
In multiple fashions, Eric could also just choose to kill the Nighthowler if he was feeling so inclined.
He just says, I think I'm just going to tick up instead. 3 more soldiers going to come into play here. And you see Rill maybe going to just cast a detention sphere to take care of that Nighthowler. Make life a little bit easier.
Yeah, no reason not to.
Now you can actually come across here for 3 points of damage to actually start to get after Bowman's life total. Consider Wayfinder is just a 1/1, so a favorable trade for Rill.
And Eric just wants to go ahead and cast all the stuff that's in his hand. He has another Revelation, so just trade resources and rev again.
Grizzly Salvage here from Adam. There's a Gerard, a Nyx Weaver, a Nemesis Immortals, a Deathrite Shaman, and a Forest. Filling up the graveyard, no problem for him this game.
There are unfortunately other problems for him this game.
Yeah, I would say so. The old 1-2 punch of Elspeth and Jace. Nyx Weaver, the card that was taken. That's going to be put into play. Rill could dissolve this if he'd like to. I'm not sure if he cares, though.
You can also rep for 3.
Yeah, he's going to dissolve here, and I'm okay with this. Again, like, it's not anything crazy. I think Rill's just like, okay, I just want to find a land, put it in play on tap, and then just rep for the full amount, and that's going to do it. Presumably, that's his plan.
I mean, it's a choose-your-own adventure where every path leads to success.
Pretty much. There's the land, and it happens to be immutable. Jason's going to tick up. This is going to be an attack for 6. Elspeth will likely tick up, and then it'll be a big rev. This is about as one-sided as it gets as far as blue-white control is concerned.
Yeah, you can't afford to do nothing for the first couple turns here and then try to win with creatures against blue-white. That's just not a plan.
It's not going to happen. And he doesn't even see the Revelation. And Eric says, well, I had that. So you were very, very dead. Eric Rill going to win game number 1 here against Adam Bowman. Blue-white control up a game over black-green dredge. Patrick, help.
3 copies of Golgari Charm, 2 copies of Rot Farm Skeleton, a 2nd copy of Farika, God of Affliction, a 3rd copy of Gerard, a Scavenging Ooze, a 2nd copy of Whip of Erebos, 3 Slum Reapers, a Herald of Torment, and a Shadowborn Demon. I guess I just like getting a little extra pressure into the deck. The Herald of Torment, I suspect, will come in. I think the Jared, the Farika, and the Rot Farm Skeletons are possibly all part of some just having a better attrition-oriented strategy, being able to slog through sweepers. And then 3 Golgari Charms, blows up Detention Spheres, can regenerate against Supreme Verdict and so forth. Maybe kill some Elspeth tokens in a specific board state.
Taking a look at the other side of things, Rill, after dominating game 1, has access to an Aetherling, a Dispel, a Negate, 2 Gainsays, 2 Nyx Fleece Ram, a Pithing Needle, 3 copies of Last Breath, 2 Celestial Flare, a Deicide, and a Blind Obedience. So taking a look at options here, Last Breath is actually okay in this particular matchup. I don't really see anything that I love. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
There's not a lot.
Needle is probably better than I think. It can take care of Lotless Troll and Gerard.
Yeah, it's pretty good against Gerard. That's a good use of it, certainly.
I mean, Aetherling is the kind of card that can close the door, but, you know, he doesn't need that to actually win. He can just win the games with Elspeth. Games are probably going to go pretty long anyway. I don't think he needs Aetherling to actually get the job done here, though. Negate could be okay. Doesn't need a card like Nyx's Fleece Ram. Doesn't really need a card like Celestial Flare. There's oftentimes going to be plenty of things for Bowman to sacrifice. I don't really see a lot of options here for Rill. And I don't think the games are going to be that easy either.
Yeah, but I think his core game plan is still pretty solid. I mean, just keep Adam off of his biggest, most productive stuff long enough to resolve a large revelation or get Elspeth into play. Because a lot of what Adam's trying to do is make one very large creature, and blue-white control is flush with answers to that sort of thing.
Well, we'll see what happens here. Adam just never got out of the gate there. I mean, obviously he had trouble with his mana to start. So I'm really interested to see exactly how good this black-green dredge deck is against blue-white control. Like when both players have equal hands and are basically functioning how they intend to function.
Yeah, Adam didn't get. I mean, Adam's draw would have beaten nothing that game, so
yeah.
It's not really fair to use that as any sort of sampling.
I am just a really big fan of this deck and this strategy, though. It seems very, very powerful. It's just all about trying to find the right, configuration of 75. That's what it seems like to me, because this one's much different than the one that we saw earlier.
I think that I would start by removing the 4th copy of Nemesis Immortals and adding the 4th Lawless Troll. Lawless Troll feels like really important to normalizing your draws and having basic game plans functional game plans when you're not going off using your graveyard, and still plenty good in those games. Nemesis Immortals is really predicated on having a lot of stuff already happening.
Yeah, that was actually one of the cards I've not been too impressed with, is Nemesis Immortal so far. It's probably better than I think it is, because there are definitely some games where you can cast it on turn 2 or cast it on turn 3. And having but how good is having a 5/5 on turn 3?
It's fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, we see Bermaz is barely played in standard.
Yeah.
A 3-mana 5/5 blank would be fine, but it's not worth bending over backwards to be playing.
And that just kind of begs the question of how good that card is in this deck, because there's also the fact that it's a 5/5, but it can be bigger, and then you can throw it at them with Gerard. There are definitely more things going on here. It's not really just a cut and dry case, but not entirely sure how worth it is to have that card in this deck.
Yeah, this deck looks at so many cards that, with Commune with the Gods and Grizzly Salvage, that you can afford to have 2 and 3 copies of certain cards and see them over the course of the game. And since Nemesis Immortals feels to me like you're waiting several turns down the line for it to be really doing its thing. You mentioned Gerard as a synergy. That's quite a bit of mana and time to set up. If you're trying to play for those sort of interactions, then I think that 4 is excessive. You can accomplish a lot of the same things playing only 3.
Obviously, there's a certain number of payoff cards you want to have for your strategy. It seems like Nighthowler is the first payoff card and easily the best one.
Well, Nighthowler also works in normal games of Magic.
Yeah.
You don't need to be salvaging and communing over and over again for that card to be powerful. So that's another no-brainer 4 of in my mind. 3 Lawless Troll just seems like too few of that card. Every time this deck has a Lawless Troll going, it feels much more powerful to me than when it doesn't.
See both players taking a look at their openers. Looks like we'll be underway here in just a moment. See if Adam Bowman's happy with his 7. The answer is no. We saw a mulligan last game as well. You see Eric Rill very quickly keep his 7 cards. So the Dredge player having some difficulty finding a starting hand.
And this feels to me, this is also a deck that could potentially benefit not from 4 copies of Mana Confluence, but maybe from 1 or 2. We see him struggle a little bit with mana. Now this deck has a specific incentive to be playing with basic lands because of Gerard. So that is a cost to pay, but it is sensitive to having both colors of mana pretty early on in the game.
I think this deck needs more lands too. There's only 20 in the deck in this particular version. 7 forests, 5 swamps, 4 temples, 4 overgrown tombs. I'm not saying you're going to have a lot to do with your lands, but I think you want more, because I don't want to be Grizzly salvaging 4 lands, for example.
It also makes your matchup against Supreme Verdict much rougher when you're basically counting on your mana creatures being in play multiple turns to provide you with sufficient mana to function.
Yeah. And to be fair, I openly admit I'm a big fan of just lands, having more lands in decks in general. I think there are just too many decks that are too short on lands. Blue-white, for example, I know that we've talked about this quite a bit. Whenever we watch the deck play, a lot of the time it just loses because it just doesn't have lands on turn 4 or 5. And it's just well, just get another one in there. And Rill's playing 27.
Yep.
I know Adrian does too.
I've been an advocate for 27 in that list for a long time.
Here's a temple. Start things off for Rill. That card's going to go to the bottom. Back to Bowman we go. See what the turn 2 play is going to be here. It's going to be a Sylvan Caryatid, so a pretty good start here for him. Rill gonna untap. He'll take a draw.
Adam at least has a hand that lets him play Magic here, so
That's all you can really ask for.
certainly a much better start than what he had in game 1.
Rill gonna play Azorius Guildgate before passing the turn back. Bowman with an untapped Overgrown Tomb, so something's coming here. The question is what? Is it gonna be Rot Farm Skeleton?
It's the skeleton.
It's Skullomania.
Yeah. So this is pretty good against Supreme Verdict, and it's pretty good against Jace. It's really bad against Elspeth.
4 mana, 4/1, cannot block. You pay 2, a black and a green. You put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, return this thing back to the battlefield, but only as a sorcery. Would be way too good if you could do it anytime.
I think things that activate out of your graveyard and come back into play are really complicated when they work at instant speed. So I would be surprised if this was a power level thing, although maybe that's a little bit of it. It's probably just too annoying to be playing against it when it's coming back in instant speed.
Yeah, I could see that. See if the skeleton's going to get in the red zone here. Hiya! There's a first for everything. Like the first time this has been Azorius Charmed.
Probably not. They appeared in the same draft format. I'm sure it's gotten Azorius Charm before.
Fair enough. Grizzly Salvage going to turn over 5 cards here, including among them.
Including the skeleton. You just get it right back.
Yep. The value is just off the charts.
The synergies here are indescribable.
Satyr Wayfinder going to go to the grip. Now it's going to be cast. So 4 more cards going to come here. Hit 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. You can take the temple if you'd like. And he will. So the graveyard's getting pretty full here. Hasn't played a land yet, so now he gets to play the temple and scry.
A nice turn, all told. Certainly this is a lot better than simply drawing the skeleton and recasting it next turn.
Yeah, hard for me to argue that point. You see Bowman's going to do a creature count in his graveyard as well, so he knows exactly how many he's got down there. Rill going to just play an island and Jace. Nothing too flashy for Eric. Going to turn over a couple of cards here. There's a Revelation Island and an Azorius Guildgate. Not too surprising to see Rev versus.
Pretty classic split.
The question is, what does Rill want? Looks like he's only got 1 more land in his hand.
Seems like a good spot to rep for 2, and if Eric draws another land next turn, he can do something else and then rep down the line. So I like taking the Revelation here. Unless you're confident that Elspeth is just game over by itself, in which case taking the lands is totally fine.
Rill says, I want the lands. Rev to the bottom. Always thought to put a rev away. Bowman going to untap. He's going to take a draw here. See a draw. There's a Golgari Charm. There's Nemesis Immortals over there. Definitely some stuff hanging out.
Is it skeleton time? Do we get it back?
Nah. We Nighthowler.
Okay.
We Nighthowler and kill a Jace.
That's fine.
Every time I watch this deck, Nighthowler is far and away the most impressive card.
Oh, it is so good in this deck.
Yeah.
It is so good in this deck.
That thing just makes everything huge.
Yeah, the first time I had an epiphany about this card was playing mono red against a mono black devotion player who just sided these in against me because he's killing a million creatures.
Okay.
And I just got my head kicked in by this games 2 and 3. And if it was good enough when my opponent wasn't even trying to make it good, I started thinking about what if someone made the effort.
Yeah. It is mighty, mighty powerful. This is the Banishing Light. And yeah, the Banishing Light, that's how good it is. It actually has to take care of just Nighthowler. Golgari Charm the draw here. Interesting stuff here.
Although for all this kind of sweet nickel and diming value that M's getting as he progresses here, it all gets undone by Elspeth.
Yeah.
The skeleton is particularly bad against Elspeth.
Don't tell it that. It's coming back for more. Gerard, Farika, Lot Troll, and a Temple.
So it appears as though Adam has brought in the second copy of Farika. He has a 1-1 split, main deck sideboard.
But it might be Elspeth time, as you did mention. And the skeleton is pretty bad against Elspeth.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but you're right.
There's some fights it's really well suited for in this matchup, and others it is not. Definitely good against Supreme Verdict and Chase.
That's definitely true.
Detention Sphere it's not good against, but so what? Nothing is particularly good against Detention Sphere.
Yeah.
Celestial Flare, that's fine.
Yeah, that
just comes right back.
That's true. No argument here. You see Rill really weighing his options here. Wants to nominate creatures in the graveyard and things of that nature.
Yeah, he still has to concern himself with Gerard hitting the table and him potentially taking a ton of damage. A lot of variables. And it looks like Eric just wants to stabilize the board a little bit before deploying Elspeth, which I respect.
Yeah, Jace comes down, ticks on up. The flare is also there as well. I think now Bowman's to the point in this game where he wants to be able to play spells and leave up Golgari Charm.
Yeah.
I think it's far too important at this point.
Which is not that hard for him to do. I mean, Nemesis Immortals, for example, is pretty inexpensive on this board. So
well, we're going to go attacking. I like this attack, obviously, because Celestial Flare is a card here. So that's a really, really good attack, in my opinion. Now there is Nemesis Immortals. That'll come down. And Charms at the ready.
Pretty good turn for Adam.
It's really nice to see Adam see through that play, see through the Celestial Flare play.
Yeah.
That's really, really important there, because if you just attack with the Skeleton, it'd be a disaster as far as the turn is concerned.
He's got to whittle down that J, so it's really significant here.
Monstrosity on the Nemesis Immortals is, it's 9 in theory. This is a Supreme Verdict.
And this is a fight that Adam is really well set to fight here.
No, sir. I do not think so. Regeneration Shield on all the creatures in play. And they are all tapped now. There we are. That might mess up Rill's game plan a little bit now.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, I think he was trying to lead the game down this road where he would bleed out a lot of Adam's resources and sweep them all away, but now he might have to fight fair.
See, Rill's going to take a look at the bin here. See how many creatures are down there. The thing that's really scary about this deck is, again, the reason that Rill keeps checking is because he can die very fast.
Yeah, just Gerard and activating can kill him from nowhere.
Yeah.
So
it gets very scary. Jace's going to get cashed in Azorius Guildgate, another copy of Jace, and a Celestial Flare. So
I imagine this is Jace versus, since Celestial Flare is not very good right now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like too surprising to me here, if that would be the split. Bowman's going to give this a moment to consider his options. I think that Jace is the most important card. I don't think the land matters very much, and the Flare certainly doesn't matter.
Well, if the land's the most important card, Adam doesn't know it. That's because of Eric's hand being in a specific place. So you have to respect the fact that Jace is probably the best card.
There's a D-Sphere on the Nemesis. All right, Bowman going to untap very quickly. He's going to take a draw here. He's doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, he's got to be happy with this.
Like
pressuring Eric without exposing himself too much to any one particular card.
Yeah, looks like he may want to start off with Grizzly Salvage, which he just drew for the turn. But again, it's very important for him, I think, to be able to keep up the ability to cast Golgari Charm. But here is the salvage to begin. Sylvan Carry to an Elvish Mystic, a Nighthowler, a Temple, and another copy of Nighthowler. What would you like, my friend?
Oh, it's mana or bombs, and I think Adam has enough mana to work with here, so.
I disagree.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised.
Fair enough.
4 creatures in the graveyard's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Temple, another land, being able to scry all that good stuff, not so bad either. This is an attack for 1 and make it 5. Rill going to go down to 14.
And maybe Adam is just trying to set up a surprise kill where he blows up the Detention Sphere with a Golgari Charm and then sets up some sort of Gerard kill.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the case. And he's just going to pass the turn back with the Charm available yet again. So I do like the way that Adam is really kind of making his way through this game here. Rill going to cast an Elspeth. Is that going to go up? It will. So hit 1, 2, and 3 soldiers.
Curious to see if Adam wants to get back any of his creatures.
And the answer right now is no.
Okay.
Take a draw here. Drew an Overgrown Tomb. That's probably pretty important, actually. The ability to be able to play Gerard right now and have a Golgari Charm up is really, really important.
Again, Adam is going to really struggle to get through on the ground for the remainder of the game, so
Yeah.
he needs to find a trampler, like Lotla Troll, and then do something with Nighthowler, or he needs to try to kill through Gerard.
There is Gerard. So that's probably the game plan now. Rill's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. You do see the Golgari Lich Lord there. It's that second ability that you care about, that second line of text. 1 black-green. Sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. This here is a Jace. A couple of cards will be coming.
And you have to imagine Eric's going to go back to the sideboard here if we go to a third game and remove these Celestial Flares, because they have been really bad.
Yeah. Revelation by itself. Lands are going to go to the bottom. And you see the grip right now. 2 flares, a Revelation, and a land. I think that Bowman may be working with perfect knowledge right now of what Rill's hand is. I think there's a chance of that. He knows about a flare in the Rev. I'm not sure if he knows about the other flare, but he played around the other flare previously.
Right.
So this is going to be a toss this is your face. Skeleton's going to put Rill down to 9. That's going to allow this to tick up. The graveyard. You see the 6 and the 4. That's how many creatures are in Bowman's graveyard. I do kind of like the combo of bring the skeleton back, throw it at you, just over and over and over again.
Yeah, this is, I mean, Adam could definitely win a slow game here.
Yeah.
Revelations throws us for a loop, of course, but you can see if the game gets into an attrition-y spot, he's got a lot of tools to work with.
Yeah, I like that aspect of his deck. I was a little skeptical of the Rot Farm skeleton, but that could just be a tool for this particular matchup, and that's it. Oh, an attack here. Huh.
Oh, maybe, I think that he might be doing this attack because if Eric taps out for double Celestial Flare, then he just wins. Then he just wins on the spot.
Wow. Huh. He doesn't have to tap out for both. He just tap out. If he taps out to cast 1, he just dies, right? Because then he just charms the Banishing Light to get back the Nighthowler and throws it at him.
No, he may respect the possibility of negate or something along those lines.
Sure.
Yeah.
That attack's really good.
Yep.
Jeez. Yeah, and I just throws it at him. And he doesn't have to worry about Revelation for 1 messing up the math.
Well, I think Adam's got him well over dead with this trigger.
Well, so the Nighthowler, I guess, okay, now it's too big. I think coming into the turn, it was a 10-10. You see Rill's going to count the graveyard. I think that's why he made the attack, because I think if he charms gets the Nighthowler back, it's a 10-10, then Rill can gain 1 and go to 11.
Okay.
I think what's the case. You see Rill's kind of in the graveyard right now. The dice may be incorrect over there, but either way, the attack is really good because it actually taps Rill down from the ability to cast some of these things.
Yeah.
And so now you see the count. You see how much damage can you deal? The answer is enough.
Yeah, it looks like, is that exact 10?
Yeah, and also,
okay.
what Bowman can do is, he charms, and then Rill says, okay, I'll cast another flare. It's like, all right, sacrifice my Satyr Wayfinder, resolve my charm, get my Nighthowler back, throw it at you, deal you more damage before the other one resolves. So either way, Adam Bowman is going to win game number 2 here with black-green Dredge over Eric Rill and blue-white Control. We'll go to a third one.
And Adam mulliganed that game, too. Got out to a pretty slow start, but Eric did not put the game away fast enough, and Adam was really able to start getting his really grindy engine going.
I think that black-green Dredge, this deck, even cards that we're not thinking of, it has enough unique ways to go about grinding someone down that it's probably a good matchup for them.
Yeah.
I think like a card like Rot Farm Skeleton, for example, really bad against Elspeth, as you mentioned, really good against other stuff.
And if Adam's primary plan is just to try to win the game with Gerard anyway, maybe he doesn't really care about Elspeth being a factor.
Yeah, and that might be a really smart thing to do because Elspeth seems like it can be good against certain draws from this deck, bad against others, and if you can put a draw together that makes it so that you don't even care about Elspeth, like just a skeleton throw it at you just every turn.
And talk about making the counter spells worse. Syncopate is very good against this setup, of course, but dissolves and essence scatters, all right, well, that's a Rot Farm Skeleton or that's a Gerard. These things all come back eventually.
So now there are 3 cards that I like in this deck a lot. Nighthowler was number 1. Number 2 was Gerard. And then number 3, or
Rot Farm
was
Skeleton.
Rot Farm Skeleton. Yeah, there are 3 cards I like in this deck now. Huh. I like Lot Troll too, so that's 4.
Yeah.
It's time. It might be time to brew.
It might be.
Somebody get me Jerry T's notebook. It might be time to brew. I wonder if Jerry T has a brew of this somewhere. The answer is probably yes.
I would have to imagine so.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked on a fair number of green-black decks for the Block Pro Tour. So they weren't quite... of course, a lot of these decks are using tools from Pharaoh, so it's not quite the same thing, but...
It's always just awesome, like, when you see a strategy starting to happen, or like you see a deck play, like, especially when we're doing coverage, and you're just like, okay, the cards are there. Something is there, and now I know we're not short on cards.
There's something good going on, for sure. There's definitely something good going on here.
Like, before, we were short on cards, I think, but with Farika and Nixweaver, and just with how the format's kind of lining up, and you have the Temple now, too, it's like, okay, we're not short on cards anymore. Now it's trying to figure out exactly what the 75 is supposed to be, and what the game plans are against opposing decks.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing now. And, you know, what cards seem like, you know, they're sacred cows that can't be cut. Nemesis Immortal seems like that card where it's like, oh, of course this card works in this strategy. But, again, how good is a cheap 5/5? Which is a strange thing to be saying, but I think your analysis is great. Like, if Bramaz isn't good, why is a cheap 5/5 good?
Right. And if the plan, and if it's good for the reasons of you're trying to set up the situation where you have Gerard and you're burning them out, you certainly don't need 4 of them in your deck to execute that game plan because you have all these Grizzly Salvages and Commune with the Gods. You're finding these cards incidentally over time.
Now, Nemesis does have 5 toughness, and that's important because Bramaz only has 4s and dies to mortars.
Sure.
But, you know, those are small things. Like, those cards die to a lot of the same cards.
Right. I'm not saying that Nemesis Immortal and Bramaz are comparable cards. They're obviously very different. I'm just saying that I'm not really in the market for something that cheap and that something being cheap and big is not a big selling point for me in Standard right now because, you know, you look at cards like Bramaz and Loxodon Smiter, they're not especially good, you know?
No, I agree.
And a lot of that has to do with the specifics of the format. Now, again, those are more creatures you can target with mortars, but the point still stands. Random big guy that isn't very expensive is not the best thing to be doing in Standard right now.
Yeah, agreed. It's not about big dumb animals right now.
It is in some matchups, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And Nighthowler already fulfills that role alongside many other.
I love that card.
Nighthowler
I love that
so
card
good
right
in this
now.
deck.
Yeah. Nighthowler, there are going to be a lot of matchups that you win just with like Nighthowler on Troll with Regeneration mana up. You can't do anything.
Yep.
It's huge and has trample. Like that against monsters might just be lights out.
Yeah, they can't really, it's hard for them to get out of that.
Yeah. It's like I have an 8/7 with a black mana available. Best of luck.
Yeah, Lala Troll just period is pretty rough on that deck.
Yeah.
And you can usually go pretty crazy just pumping it because their removal spells don't push through regeneration or it's damage based.
All right.
Yeah, there's something good going on here for sure.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this deck. Whether Adam Bowman wins or not, this is the second time we've seen this deck on camera, and both times I was really excited about what this deck can do. But I tell you, that Conley Woods, he's a smart guy.
He is.
You see, Rill will be taking a mulligan now.
I was playing Magic Online with my buddy, and he played against a very alpha build of this deck many months ago. I'm not sure if it was Conley or just someone else who had copied the list, but I was not impressed with that iteration of the deck, but it has increased in power over time quite a bit.
It looks like Bowman's going to keep his 7 cards. I just like the fact, I feel like this deck can sculpt to beat anything. Like, it can have game plans against all the different archetypes.
Yeah, and there's a lot
that's what I like.
There's a ton of redundancy, too. With Wayfinder, Salvage, and Commune, there's plenty of stuff to flip things into your graveyard.
Yeah. You can consistently find what, I mean, we feel to be the best cards, which are like Lot of the Troll, Nighthowler, and things like that. Like, you're not going to go a game where it's like, I didn't draw Nighthowler, I lost.
Right. You look at a lot of cards.
6 cards. That doesn't look like any lands for Eric. He's going down to 5. There's no good time to mulligan to 5, but this is a pretty bad one, too.
Yeah, game 3.
Yeah.
You can only feel so cheated here as you got 1 free win, essentially, that first game.
Yeah.
But the timing is not great. That is certainly true.
Rill trying to hold strong for Nerd Rage Gaming. Him and Ketter basically playing the same team. No Kent Ketter this weekend.
Which is kind of unexpected. I mean, he's traveled for a lot of opens, and this one's reasonably close to where he lives.
Yeah. Rill going to go down to 5 here. See if you can overcome these 2 mulligans. Pretty tough to do, especially with him on the play. 4, 5. Well, he's got 3 lands of Revenant Jace. It's not so bad.
It's a very solid 5-card hand.
We'll see how Bowman comes out of the gates. He's got a green source, an Overgrown Tomb. Now again, the Dredge deck doesn't come out all that quickly. Here's a Hallowed Fountain, pass the turn back.
Well, it still has a lot of the same mana acceleration draws that we associate with decks like Monsters. I mean, there are 4 Elvish Mystics, 3 Sylvan Caryatids, and Deathrite Shaman can fulfill that role sometimes as well.
So Supreme's already picked up for Rill as well, so he's actually doing rather well right now. This looks like a commune. Take a look at some cards here. There's Golgari Charm, a Lotless Troll, a Herald of Torment, a Temple, and an Overgrown Tomb.
So Eric's got a competitive 5-card hand. I mean, this is shaped up pretty nicely for him.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. No land, oh boy. Rill's got plenty of that. He's going to drop down Jace now. He can minus this comfortably. There's a Celestial Flare. That's a Plains. And then a Deicide as well. Deicide versus Lance and Flare look like they're going to go to the grip. This one might be getting away from Bowman pretty quickly here.
Yeah. You can't mess around against blue-white.
There's Pharika. Just has to pass the turn back. That's not the most exciting of cards or turns.
Not in the face of an active Jace.
Yeah.
I'm not really looking to make 1/1 tokens.
Detention Sphere, going to take care of that. Azorius Skill Gates land for the turn. Jace's going to tick up.
It feels like Eric is actually favored by quite a bit at this stage.
Yeah, mulligan to 5, no less. Let's see what this is. This is a Lotless Troll and just passing the turn back. Yikes. Rill going to untap. We know he has a Flare in his hand. Going to take a draw. Another Revelation. Oh, boy. Down to 1 goes the Jace. Temple of Enlightenment, a Mutavault, and another copy of Jace. My goodness. It's like he didn't mulligan at all.
Nope. It's like Adam mulliganed.
Yeah.
Again.
He's the one stumbling and fumbling out of the gate. This is why those 20 lands are really concerned me with this deck.
Feels a little mana light, and you can feel it the most in the games where your opponent has Supreme Verdict. Bowman has another Caryatid in his hand. He's just not willing to deploy right now, and for good reason. It's very likely to just get swept away.
Jace's going to go to the bottom. Lands will go to the grip. There's a Mutavault.
It's really weird to think about it in terms of it makes the matchup better or worse for you to have lands instead of Sylvan Caryatid, because you just think Sylvan Caryatid's just a card in my deck, basically, and the lands are just cards in my deck. But having really stable sources of mana is very important for beating the control decks.
There's another Caryatid now. And Rill's going to get to Rev now. My, oh my. It's honestly like he did not mulligan at all this game.
Not only is this a, he's on a mulligan to 5, this is on a mulligan to 5, and the game isn't even close. This is a landslide edge right now for Eric.
Rill with a ton of options in his hand now. Also has another Revelation, has a Planeswalker to use in Jace.
I mean, don't get me wrong here. I know that Eric was hoping he'd be able to win this 5-card game, but I think he thought it would at least be a little harder than this.
I would like to imagine that's the case. Going to regenerate Lotless Troll here. Jace's going to tick up. Just pass the turn back here. Probably Grizzly Salvage. Yep. Hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rot Farm Skeleton, Grizzly Salvage 2, Commune with the Gods, and another copy of Pharika.
No lands.
Pharika going to go to the grip. Rest is going to go to the bin. I think Pharika much too slow at this point.
Yeah. And again, active Jace is just not really what this game's about right now.
Yeah, and you see Lotless Troll stay on defense simply because Bowman knows that Rill has a copy of Celestial Flare in his hand. Again, Celestial Flare is not a card that I feel is great in this particular matchup, but it can be great in certain situations. It's also great against the Lotless Troll strategy of this deck.
Yes. Yeah, it looked really bad in game 2, that's for sure. But when you can sweep up the rest of Adam's board with Supreme Verdict, but he's likely to have one threat left over, whether it's a bestowed creature or a lot troll. Celestial Flare lines up very nicely in those scenarios.
Now Mutavault's feeling frisky because of the flare and the grip.
Whoa.
That's a safe attack. We oftentimes think of Celestial Flare as destroy target attacking creature, but you have to sacrifice a blocker too.
Rarely comes up when blue-white is the one with Celestial Flare, but
yeah. Jace's just going to tick up, pass the turn back. Bowman finally does draw a third land. It's a forest that rolls off the top.
And how long has this Jace been in play for now?
It feels like an eternity. Yeah, 4 turns. He hasn't missed a land drop, so there's Nemesis Immortals. Cheap 5/5. That'll come into play. As Rill's going to take a draw here. Azorius Charm is what he's found.
Oof.
That's no fun.
It wouldn't even surprise me that now with Revelation and he's close to discarding to see Eric switch gears here and start plussing Jason, just go try to win the game that way.
Jerry responded on Twitter. He says, haven't gotten there yet. Working on, quote, real, unquote, decks at the moment. How dare you?
What a hater.
You see Bowman looking to attack now. Yeah, he's going to get in here with both of them.
I have bad news. There are no good attacks.
Yeah, between Flare and Azorius Charm, there are no good attacks.
Arguably the best attack that Adam has, if he had full information, was attack with nothing, which is not a good spot to be in.
Lawless Troll going to bite the dust there. Another Flare. How about that? So those are both gone. What's the follow-up play going to be? A Satyr Wayfinder. Let's take a look at a couple of cards. A Forest, a Swamp, a Llanowar Mystic, an Elvish Mystic, and a Nighthowler. Forest will go to the grip directly into play. There's a Sylvan Caryatid. And that's it here for Bowman. Rill's going to untap pretty comfortably now. He'll take a draw. Supreme Verdict is what he found.
Sure.
Doesn't even really need to cast it at this point. Can probably pick a better spot. Going to take up Jace to 5, play an island. This is probably a rev turn.
Yeah, and Eric can just kind of win the game at his leisure here.
Yeah.
Jace will sort of just do it incidentally.
It just had to be the mana fumbling, right?
Well, he spent he also spent some early turns spinning his tires instead of really developing his board.
Yeah.
Part of that's tied to mana. Some of that's the nature of the stack. It's the early turns are going to be mana and setting up the graveyard for the most part.
Rod Farm Skeleton going to come back from the graveyard here. Can't counter that. Don't really need to, though.
It is true. You cannot counter that.
Can't counter this either. Revelation for 7. Rill up to 30. Found another copy of Sphinx's Revelation. Another Supreme Verdict, too. The driver's seat is where Eric Rill is.
This was a 5-card hand. He was on 5 cards a while ago. Actually, not really even that long ago.
I don't know if he's ever going to be on 5 cards again. Like during the course of this game. I don't know if he's ever going to have less than 7 cards in his hand. And here's the Supreme Verdict, a little 3-for-1 action.
Well, it's only really an implied 2-for-1 because the skeleton comes back.
Ooh, you're right about that. Busted. Is that what you say?
Busted.
Yep.
You thought you got me with your wrath, but my guy's just coming right back.
Well, feel free to bring that back in the face of an Elspeth.
Yeah.
3 soldiers going to come in right now. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. It's going to leave the top card on top. Rill's going to have to do a little bit of discarding here, but I'm sure he doesn't mind given his starting hand size for this game. The fact that he's to the point of discarding is a pretty good spot to be in.
Yep. And he left Dissolve on top of his deck, which I believe will be the Hammerlock here.
Yeah. He's number 6 on our leaderboard right now, but he's going to be moving up because it looks like he's going to win this match and probably be able to draw in next round.
This is the thing. I understand in some ways the way that Bowman's sideboard is constructed here. You have a lot of graveyard value kind of action. You look at these Slum Reapers and Shadowborn Demons and Rot Farm Skeletons, Farika, Gerard. I get all of this, don't get me wrong. But there's got to be room in sideboards like this to play just Duresses and Thoughtseizes. It can't all be this kind of fanciness because you just get too many hands that are picked apart by individual cards or just don't go anywhere because all of your pieces are too interlocking. Just because you're playing a graveyard-based strategy doesn't mean that every sideboard card you have has to fit into that prism. You can just play regular cards.
As you guys wondering right now, Eric Rill with 98 Open Series points.
Yep.
The leader is Van Meter at 108, and Chris Van Meter is not going to make the top 8 here. We could very easily see Rill jump up all the way up into second place, which is the only place that matters right now.
And keep in mind, Eric Rill is a guy with some legacy chops, too.
No, he's won 2 Legacy Opens. He won in Milwaukee last month.
Yeah, it's not like this is his weekend's over here.
See, Grizzly Salvage going to turn over a couple cards here. 3 copies of Satyr Wayfinder, a Swamp, and a Forest. But those cards just really don't matter right now. I'm trying to think of ways for Bowman to get back in this game, but Rill's at 30.
Yeah, the course of action from this kind of spot is find a way to punk him out with Nighthowler Gerard or Nemesis Immortals Gerard, something along those lines, but that ship has sailed.
And Dissolve says, no, I don't think so, Nighthowler. You go to the graveyard, I get to scry. Rill's going to untap this whole swath of lands. And this is just reminiscent of game number 1 now. Rill just looking to close the door.
I can't remember the last time I've seen a game this decisive involving someone mulliganing to 5.
Yeah. That's honestly how I feel, too.
I mean, it happens in Legacy sometimes because people, you mulligan to 5, but your opponent can't beat a Wasteland, or you mulligan to 5, but you have a black ley line and your dredge opponent can't function. That stuff happens all the time in Legacy. But in low power formats like Standard, I can't remember the last time I've seen something like that. You probably had to go back to Caw-Blade, honestly, to see a match like this.
Yeah, because like Squadron Hawk could undo the mulliganing or whatever.
And Jace could undo the mulligan, and Stone Fortress could undo the mulligan, and
Preordain could undo the mulligan. Yeah. That deck was mediocre or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
You see Jason's going to turn over a Supreme Verdicted Island and a Temple. Rill going to take his time before selecting these lands. Supreme Verdict going to go to the bottom. Going to play the island. Going to attack here for 6. Elspeth's going to take out 3 more soldiers coming for Eric. I'm sure Adam Bowman, after he kept his hand and saw his opponent mulligan to 5, was thinking, oh my goodness, top 8 with the dredge deck.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Especially with, game 2, he mulligans on the play, and Eric has a mighty fine draw. It's not like there was anything wrong with Eric.
Everything went to plan.
Yeah. You got to feel like you're going to that game, in that game 3, when your opponent takes that second mulligan, thinking this one's over.
Everything went the way Bowman wanted to for game 2 and before game 3 even began. And at no point was he even in this game, which is just an absurd thing to think about.
Yeah.
But that's why you play out the games. So anything can happen.
3 lands, Jace.
Rev.
Draw Supreme Verdict. Draw 4th land.
Here's Herald of Torment. You're a little late. We could see a Golgari Charm here for -1/-1. But I mean, again, that's a situation where I think Rill knows. Uh-oh, maybe he doesn't know. In response, uh-oh.
Little sloppy.
Little sloppy.
Little sloppy. Unfortunately, at this point, Adam is losing the race to his own Herald of Torment triggers. So this only gets him so far, but this is still maybe a little rush to action here from Eric.
Wow. All right, Mutavaults are going to come in here. Those Mutavaults are 4/4s.
Yes.
Because of the emblem. So they do beat Herald Torment in combat. So now here comes 3 cards. Revelation, a Dissolve. Had he cycled the Azorius Sharp, he would have found the Dissolve, which is pretty funny.
Doesn't really, again, this is all the play leading up to this point was really solid, so whatever.
There's a Temple of Malady. Little scry action here. Going to show the hand. Eric Rill on a mulligan to 5 is going to defeat Adam Bowman. 2-1. Blue-white control gets the job done. And with any luck for Rill, he'll be able to draw into the elimination rounds.
I would suspect as much. Again, we are at 476 for the